There's a delicate thread that separates fame from farce. And Meghan Markle didn't just trip over it. She was dragged across it, center stage. Under the bright lights of live television, it happened on Saturday Night Live. Colin Jost, calm, stone-faced, and razor-sharp, didn't just make jokes. He dismantled Meghan's carefully polished public image. A decade of narrative spun and crafted with surgical precision, unraveled in less than 10 minutes. To be clear, Colin isn't known for going soft. But no one saw this coming. Not this sharp. Not this merciless. Especially when it came to something as loaded as the royal circus. What started as a playful jab at Meghan's media ventures quickly turned into one of the most brutal comedy monologues. In recent memory, the audience didn't just laugh, they roared, clapped, gasped. It was wildfire. And online. It was like someone lit a match in a room soaked with gasoline. The timing couldn't be worse. Meghan was in the middle of yet another reinvention. New shows, new branding, that endless tightrope walk between demanding privacy and chasing headlines. But Colin, he wasn't buying it. With a knowing smirk, the kind that warns you something explosive is coming, he dropped the line that detonated everything. Meghan Markle wants privacy. Right after signing another Netflix deal and launching a jam brand. Boom, the room lost it. Then came the dagger. The quote that echoed far beyond Studio 8H. She's not the people's princess. She's the PR princess. A wannabe Diana. With Wi-Fi. Harsh, viral, devastating, not because it hit a nerve. A sentence that summed up what so many had tiptoed around. The idea that Meghan wasn't just aligning with Diana's legacy. She was trying to reboot it. But without the pain, the vulnerability, the raw humanity that made Diana unforgettable, and the public. They ate it up. Laughter turned to memes. Hashtags like hashtag PR princess and hashtag fake Diana trended. Meghan's face popped up in parodies talk shows. Even mocked up posters for the crown. This wasn't just mockery. It was a shift. A cultural pulse check. Behind the scenes, the mood was different. At Netflix, at Spotify, in the same boardrooms that bankrolled her rise. Executives weren't laughing, they were watching, and whispering. A phrase began circulating among branding consultants. Meghan fatigue. Because when a comedy sketch resonates this deeply, it's not just a joke anymore. It becomes public opinion, and public opinion can make or break a brand. Colin didn't invent the criticism. He simply said what others were afraid to. It's a growing gap between Meghan's messaging and her methods. Between the story she wants to tell and the one people are beginning to see. It wasn't a hit piece. It was a mirror. And when the reflection starts to crack, so does the crown. Her empire isn't crumbling, but it's shaking. And for someone who built their legacy on image, that kind of tremor is dangerous because this wasn't parody anymore. This felt like a reckoning. A public intervention wrapped in a punchline. And in that moment, the world stopped laughing with Meghan and started laughing at her. She said she left the palace because it was toxic, and people understood. But now, there she was, in a Montecito mansion filming 5 camera angles of her healing process. That's not trauma, the joke said. That's content. And the laughter that followed, it wasn't cruel. It was cathartic. Like a cultural sigh of relief. Someone had finally said what many were too polite to voice, and it wasn't just Meghan in the spotlight. Prince Harry caught stray fire too. Colin Jost quipped that America's trade deal with the UK should involve sending Harry and Meghan back. Joking that Britain's only demand was that we keep those too. The delivery was flat. Deadpan. And somehow that made it land even harder. The point wasn't to be subtle. The gloves were off. But the sharpest blows didn't come from insult, they came from contrast. Jost painted Meghan's constant overexposure against Kate Middleton's quiet grace. Kate smiles, waves, and raises 3 children. Meghan, he said, gives a TED Talk every time she toasts bread. It wasn't just funny, it was devastating. It reflected something the public had started to feel, that Meghan's endless explanations, her branding of every pain, every emotion, every achievement was becoming exhausting. And that exhaustion has consequences. According to reports, even her usual defenders in the media went quiet. Influencers who once posted glowing praise said nothing. A feminist columnist who championed her for years tweeted only 3 words. He wasn't wrong. It was a shift, not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and almost eerie. The kind of silence that says more than 1,000 angry tweets ever could. There's a rule in public life: when people stop defending you, it's not always because they've turned against you. Sometimes it's because they've stopped believing there's anything left to defend. Meghan, once shielded by progressive media, praised as a symbol of rebellion and grace, suddenly stood alone. Not attacked, just exposed. And the real danger wasn't in the laughter. It was in the stillness that followed. Can't spin silence. No PR firm can rewrite it. And that's what makes satire so lethal. It cuts past the polish, past the branding. It taps into what people really feel, not what they're told to feel. One network consultant described the moment as brand slippage. Not because Meghan did something wrong, but because people simply stopped caring. And when the applause fades, when the hashtags vanish, what's left is a brand that lost its grip, not to scandal, but to saturation. And Colin Jost, with a grin and a script, held up the final cue card. Behind the scenes, Meghan wasn't laughing. Sources close to her said she felt ambushed, humiliated, and personally targeted. She believed the sketch crossed a line, that it wasn't just tasteless, but misogynistic. But the louder her team pushed back, the more disconnected she seemed. Because the jokes weren't attacking her, they were confronting the performance. The carefully lit monologues, the hyper-curated narratives, the branding of vulnerability. Over time, what once felt raw and brave started to feel rehearsed, packaged, controlled. And when your authenticity starts looking like a product, people stop connecting. They start seeing through it. That's why Jost's roast hit so hard. He didn't mock Meghan's heart. He mocked the polish around it, the overdone production, the endless media deals disguised as healing. What was left wasn't a villain. It was a marketer with a royal surname. Ironically, Meghan may have been better off ignoring it. But by reacting, by showing she was angry, hurt, frustrated, she did exactly what critics expected. Reinforce the idea that every critique is a threat, that every narrative must be managed, that every uncomfortable moment must be reshaped, cleaned, and explained. And that instinct to control everything has become her greatest liability. Meanwhile, the royal family, silent. No statements, no comments, not even a whisper. But inside the palace, according to tabloids, the segment was met with quiet satisfaction. It was only a matter of time, said one source. Another was blunter. She's been playing Diana for years. The joke wrote itself. And you can see why the firm might find it grimly amusing. For years, Meghan and Harry criticized the monarchy while cashing in on the very name they left behind. And the palace, it stayed quiet. But this was different. This wasn't a tabloid headline or political backlash. This was Saturday Night Live mainstream comedy. And the crowd didn't boo. They cheered. Hollywood noticed too. Variety. Insiders claimed media execs were privately rattled. Not because the jokes were cruel, but because they were universal. That kind of laugh in a polarized world is rare. But with Meghan, it came easy. And that's not just a red flag. That's a siren. Some say the Meghan era isn't over, it's evolving. But the direction, it isn't upward, it's sideways. Toward a softer relevance that cuts deeper than hate. Because when people stop debating you and start mocking you, the story changes. You're no longer a symbol, you're a punchline. Colin Jost, with one smirk and a mic, handed America the final script. The legacy Meghan once hoped to write, full of bold speeches, brave choices, and cultural change, has been overtaken by a narrative she can't control, can't edit, and can't narrate. Now, for the first time in her carefully crafted public life, the last word didn't come from her. Kate came from a joke, and it landed.